right, let's dive in. Today we're tackling the world of data, especially how it impacts you directly.
Interesting stuff.
We're going deep into Reclaim Your Digital Gold, the book you sent over, focusing on the chapters that really hit home for you.
Right on.
Get ready for some serious aha moments.
Yeah, I'm excited.
We're talking about data being more valuable than oil.
Hmm.
The whole social scoring thing, kind of a scary thought.
Yeah, it is.
And even some practical tips protecting your data, maybe even making some cash from it.
That's right.
I was blown away by how this book changes the way you think about data.
Something we use every single day, right?
Yeah, but never really stop to think about.
But it's always there.
It's always there.
Lurking.
Lurking.
It is. Reclaim Your Digital Gold really nails it. It starts off comparing data today to like the gold rush.
Powerful image, huh?
Yeah, it is. You picture those prospectors rushing to California, picks and shovels in hand, dreaming of striking it rich. But now it's different. The tools are smartphones and laptops, and the gold we're after is information.
It's crazy how data has become this driving force.
Yeah, and the book's point is, it's not just the big tech companies in Silicon Valley.
It affects all of us every day.
It shapes everyone's lives, from the personalized ads we see to, like, the products they recommend to us.
It's become our reality without us even noticing.
Absolutely.
It really has. I thought it was so cool how the book goes back in time, showing how data evolved.
It does.
You know, from those clunky old computers to the AI stuff we have now.
Right, from punch cards to algorithms that know us better than we know ourselves.
It's kind of freaky, right?
It is.
Yeah.
That's where the book uses that brilliant analogy of teaching a machine to tell the difference between, like, a glass of wine and a glass of beer.
I remember that, yeah.
It really gets you thinking, just
Yeah.
like, to teach a person that difference.
You gotta show them a lot of examples.
You need tons of examples, the color, the glass shape, all that.
Right.
Well, AI's the same way.
It needs all that data.
It needs mountains of data to learn and make decisions.
Makes you realize all those online quizzes, every website we visit, every purchase, every like on social media,
Yeah.
it's all feeding into this.
It is.
It's crazy. We're not just users anymore. We're data points.
Yeah, we're feeding the machine.
What was your big takeaway from how the book talks about data collection?
It made me realize how we're constantly generating data without even thinking about it.
All the time.
Like cookies on websites,
Yeah.
web scraping, those quizzes we just talked about. It's like a wake-up call.
It makes you way more aware of that digital footprint we're leaving.
It does.
Okay.
The book also stressed that it's not just about how much data, but also about the quality of that data.
It's like that garbage in, garbage out thing.
Right, GI Go.
GI Go.
GI Go.
Wow.
What they're saying is accuracy is key.
Yeah.
If we feed these AI systems bad data, biased data, we're going to get messed up results.
Right. And that could have huge consequences.
Yeah. The book had this scary example about facial recognition software using bad data and leading to wrongful arrests.
That's a powerful example of why understanding this stuff matters.
It is.
And then the book brings up this digital divide issue.
Yeah, it does.
Even with all the wealth in the world, the gap between those who have access to technology and information and those who don't is getting wider.
That's right.
What do you think about that, especially with data becoming so important in our lives?
I think the digital divide is about more than just having the latest gadget.
It's deeper than that.
It is. It's about access to opportunity, to education, even healthcare.
Right.
The book talks about how limited internet access in rural areas means people can't use telemedicine, and that leads to healthcare disparity.
It makes you think about your own access and digital literacy, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Like, how prepared are we for this data-driven world?
We need the tools to navigate it.
Especially when it comes to privacy, which feels more important than ever.
Definitely. That brings up a crucial point. Everyone is being tracked online.
Right.
That whole nothing to hide, nothing to worry about thing, that's just not true anymore, not in the digital age.
I know, I've definitely felt like I'm being watched online. Those ads that follow you everywhere you go,
We've all been there.
it's creepy. Like, they know what you're thinking.
It's not just a feeling. The book gets into the mechanics of how it works.
I was fascinated by that.
It is fascinating and a little scary. Cookies, web beacons, IP addresses, even mouse tracking.
They're tracking our mouse movement.
They are.
Yeah.
All this is being used to gather data about what we do online.
It's kind of overwhelming when you think about it.
It is.
So what can we do about it? I know
Yeah.
the book had some advice on protecting our data.
It does. And it's not about disconnecting from the digital world entirely, but about taking smart steps,
Okay.
like adjusting our privacy settings.
On our phones, social media, all that.
Right. Strong passwords, using two-factor authentication.
Yeah.
Being careful about what we share online. All those things help us gain back some control.
It also mentions antivirus software.
Right. That's important.
Something people don't always think about.
Yeah. It's like a security system for your digital life.
Right, it protects you from all that nasty stuff that can steal your data.
It does.
The internet's amazing, but it definitely has its risks.
Absolutely.
And one of the scariest ones the book talks about is these social scoring systems.
Yeah, that one really got to me.
Yeah.
They use the example of China's social credit system. Your online behavior, finances, even who you hang out with can affect if you can get a loan, travel, even get a job.
It's like your online reputation becomes your real-life currency.
It is.
I remember that episode of Black Mirror Nosedive, where your social media score controlled your whole life.
Right. Super relevant.
It's fiction, but it feels so close to reality now.
It does.
With how much we rely on social media, it's disturbing.
It is. It raises a lot of ethical questions. Transparency, accountability, individual rights. All those things are up in the air in the digital age.
Definitely something to think about.
Makes you wonder, how comfortable are we with this level of judgment based on data?
It's a big question. But flipping that around a bit, if companies are making money off our data, shouldn't we be able to too?
Now there's a thought.
The book explores that, right?
It does.
Challenges that whole idea that only corporations benefit from data collection.
It does.
It even talks about selling your data or the insights from it for profit.
Makes you think.
Yeah, it sounds almost radical, doesn't it?
It does.
So we've talked about data being the new gold, the digital divide,
Right.
privacy, social scoring,
Mm-hmm.
and even making money off our own data.
That's a lot.
That's a lot to process.
Just scratching the surface.
We've just scratched the surface. The book goes even deeper into things like the impact of social media, the metaverse, Web 3.0.
Fascinating stuff.
There's so much more to explore. We'll be back in a bit to dive into those topics and figure out what they mean for you.
It's amazing how social media has become such a big part of our lives.
It really is. The book says over half the world uses it.
That's a lot of people.
That's a huge number. And what's even crazier is all the data those platforms are collecting.
Oh, yeah.
It's everything from your age and where you live to how you behave online, how much you engage with stuff, even your opinions and feelings.
Then get it all.
It's like this digital mirror showing who you are, but then someone's analyzing that reflection and using it in ways you'd never imagine.
It can be a little unsettling when you think about it.
Yeah, it is. So how does the book explain how businesses are using all this data?
Well, they talk about hyper-targeted marketing. It's not just showing you ads for stuff you search for recently.
Oh, it goes deeper.
Much deeper. They can target you based on your interests, your values, even your personality.
It's so sophisticated.
It really is. No wonder those ads feel like they're reading your mind sometimes.
Right. It's all based on the data we're putting out there, whether we realize it or not.
Exactly.
So what does this mean for us? What does our social media presence say about us?
That's a great question. It makes you think about how potential employers, clients, even dates might see you based on your online persona.
Interesting.
The book reminds us we're always curating our digital identities, and those identities have real-world consequences.
It's like our profiles become extensions of ourselves, for better or worse.
Absolutely.
And speaking of extensions, the book also talks about this crazy concept of the metaverse, this immersive online world, blending virtual reality, augmented reality, and gaming.
Yeah, the metaverse.
It's not just a tech thing. It feels like a whole cultural shift.
It really does. Blurring the lines between physical and digital.
Creating new ways to connect, work, play.
And it's not just for gamers anymore. The book talks about businesses getting involved, setting up virtual shops and experiences.
It's straight out of science fiction, but it's happening right now. So what does this mean for our data? We're already generating so much online. How will the metaverse impact that?
Think about it. Your movements, interactions, preferences, even your emotions, all tracked in a persistent virtual world. It's a whole new level of data collection.
That's a lot.
It raises questions about ownership, control, privacy in this new frontier.
Yeah, it's a lot to wrap your head around.
It is.
What are your thoughts on the metaverse? Are you excited? Cautious?
I think it's important to approach it with both curiosity and caution.
I like that.
There's no doubt it has huge potential for innovation and connection, but
There's always a but.
We also need to be aware of the potential for exploitation, manipulation, and the loss of privacy.
Right.
The book stresses the importance of setting ethical guidelines and safeguards before we fully dive into this new digital world.
It's like we're at this crossroads, deciding how this tech will shape our future.
We are.
And that leads us to another big one. Web 3.0, the decentralized internet.
The future of the internet.
The book paints this picture of a more open, equitable, transparent internet where users have more control over their data.
Very different from what we have now.
It's a big change.
Web 3.0 challenges the power dynamics of the internet as it is today, where a few big tech companies control all the data.
Right.
The book explains how technologies like blockchain, the semantic web, and AI could give users ownership and control of their data.
Wow.
It's about empowering users and creating new opportunities for economic and social change.
It sounds almost utopian.
It does.
But are there downsides to a decentralized internet? What about misinformation, harmful content? How do you regulate that?
Those are valid concerns. The book acknowledges that Web 3.0 isn't perfect. It's a work in progress.
Still being built.
Exactly. It emphasizes the need for responsible development and governance to ensure it serves humanity.
It's like we're building a new world, and we need to make sure the foundation is strong.
I like that analogy.
So we've talked about Web 3.0, the metaverse, the impact of social media, big, complex topics. But what about right now? What are some practical things we can do to navigate this digital world safely and effectively?
The book offers some great advice on digital hygiene.
The basics.
The basics are crucial. Strong passwords, two-factor authentication, being careful what you share.
That's what we always hear, but it's easy to forget.
It is. These simple steps go a long way in protecting your data and privacy.
What about privacy settings on our devices and social media?
Oh, absolutely. It's so important to understand the options you have and adjust them to fit your needs and comfort level.
Right.
It's about being aware of what data you're sharing and making conscious choices about who has access to it.
It sounds like there's a lot to keep track of.
There is, but knowledge is your best defense.
It always is.
The book emphasizes digital literacy, understanding how tech works, how data is collected and used, how to protect yourself.
Yeah.
It's about empowering yourself to make informed decisions in this constantly changing digital world.
But digital literacy isn't just about technical skills, right?
No, not at all. It's also about critical thinking, media literacy, ethical decision-making online.
Right.
You have to be aware of bias, manipulation, disinformation. The book reminds us that not everything you see online is true.
That's so true.
And you need to be able to tell fact from fiction.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught in echo chambers or click on those clickbait headlines.
It is.
We need to be smarter about the information we consume online.
Absolutely.
And speaking of being smart, the book talks about monetizing our data, turning those digital footprints into a potential income stream. What stood out to you about that?
What I liked was the book's balanced approach. It acknowledges the potential benefits, but also stresses responsibility and ethics.
So it's not just about handing over your data to the highest bidder.
No, it's about understanding the value of your data and exploring ways to reclaim some of that value for yourself while also protecting your privacy and security.
So you have to be careful.
Exactly. The book mentions platforms like data aggregators and market research firms that pay you for sharing your data.
Yeah.
But it encourages you to think about the trade-offs. Are you comfortable sharing certain types of data? What are the risks and benefits? Weigh those factors and make decisions that align with your values.
It's like we're entering this new era of data ownership where people have more agency and control over how their information is used.
That's the idea.
And this whole concept of reclaiming our digital gold, literally and figuratively, seems to be a big theme throughout the book.
It is. It's an empowering message.
It is.
Reminding us we're not just passive consumers of tech. We have the power to shape our digital destinies.
I like that.
The author uses this great analogy, comparing our situation to the early days of online shopping.
Interesting.
Those who adapted to the new tech thrived, others got left behind.
Makes you wonder, how will we adapt to this increasingly data-driven future?
That's the question.
It is a big one.
I think the answer lies in embracing digital literacy, being aware of what's going on, making conscious choices about how we use tech.
So knowledge is power, especially when it comes to our own data.
Absolutely. But before we wrap up, there's one more thing from the book I wanted to touch on. The dark web.
Oh yeah, the dark web.
This hidden corner of the internet.
It's a little mysterious, even scary.
It is, and understandably so. It's often associated with illegal activities.
Right. Hackers, drugs, all that shady stuff.
That's the image we often see, but the reality is more complex.
Oh.
The book explains that the dark web uses special software to make users anonymous, so it's hard to track their activity.
It sounds like something out of a spy movie.
It does have that element of secrecy.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. The dark web isn't inherently good or bad. It's a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for different purposes.
So it's like a double-edged sword.
Exactly. On one hand, it can be used for illegal activities, like you said. But on the other hand, it can be a valuable resource for people who need to communicate anonymously.
Like whistleblowers, activists, journalists in dangerous places, the book mentions.
Exactly. For them, the dark web can be a lifeline, a way to share info without fear.
That makes sense. It reminds us that anonymity can be a powerful force for good.
It can.
But even with the positives, the book warns us to be aware of the risks.
Absolutely.
Malware, scams, getting involved in something you shouldn't.
Right. Navigating the dark web requires digital savvy and awareness.
So for most people, it's probably best to stick to the regular internet.
Probably a good idea.
But I guess it's still important to note that this other world exists,
It is.
to be aware of its complexities and potential consequences.
Knowledge is power.
That's what they say.
And speaking of knowledge, we've covered a lot in this deep dive.
We have.
From data as the new gold to the digital divide. From the future of work to the rise of AI, social scoring, the metaverse.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. And I think the big takeaway here is that we're living in a time of massive technological change, and data is at the heart of it all.
It's changing everything.
It is. How we live, work, interact, even think.
It's both exciting and a little overwhelming.
It is. But I believe that by understanding what's going on, being informed and engaged, we can use the power of data to create a better future.
Well said.
So, as we wrap up, what's the one thing you want listeners to take away from this?
That's a good question.
The message of empowerment. Your data is valuable, and you have a choice in how it's used. Be curious, be cautious, but above all, be empowered.
Empowered to reclaim our digital gold. I love it. Thanks for joining us on this.
It's a question a lot of people are asking these days.
Yeah, it feels kind of radical, but also, like, why not? Is that even realistic?
Well, the book makes a pretty strong case for it. They talk about these new platforms popping up that let you sell your data, or at least the insights they get from it.
So what kind of platforms are we talking about?
Data aggregators, for one. They pay you for sharing your browsing habits.
Interesting.
And market research firms, they give you rewards for taking surveys.
So it's like getting paid to just be yourself online.
Yeah, in a way. But the book stresses that you got to do your research, make sure you're dealing with reputable platforms that won't mess with your privacy or security.
Right, I don't want to sell my soul to the data devils or anything.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance, protecting yourself, but also maybe taking advantage of this new data economy.
So it's not some get-rich-quick scheme,
Definitely not.
but maybe a way to get some control back, and maybe even benefit from all this data we're creating anyway.
Right, like turning lemons into lemonade, but with data instead of lemons.
I like that. Feels like that's a big theme in the book. Empowerment.
It is.
Understanding the value of our data and figuring out how to reclaim that value, both literally and figuratively.
Reclaiming our digital gold.
I love that. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one big thing you want our listener to remember?
That the digital world's always changing, but one thing stays the same. Knowledge is power.
Couldn't agree more.
The more you understand about data, the better prepared you'll be to navigate this whole crazy landscape and make smart choices that benefit you.
So be curious, stay informed,
and take control of your digital destiny.
That's awesome advice. Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive. It's been really eye-opening.
My pleasure. Keep diving deep.
And to all our listeners out there, thanks for exploring the world of data with us. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep reclaiming your digital gold. We'll see you on the next episode of The Deep Dive.